I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's October 2nd, 2024, regular meeting of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. Item number 1 on the agenda was call to order. Item number 2 is the seat alternates. We have Mr. Wallace joining us this evening. Item number 3 is hearing of residents. Nobody signed up? No emails? No, okay. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. There's no discussion on the consent agenda. We have a single item. 4A, minutes for the September 4th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Commissioners, do we need to pull that for discussion or correction or anything? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. There is no discussion. Please record your vote. All right, I see 7 votes. Will you publish that, please? We have 7 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Item number 5 is public hearings. Let's see, let me turn there on the back page. So we have 4 public hearings this evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing related to zone change requests, specific use permits, and Unified Development Code amendments within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The Commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, gotta flip the page here. After deliberation, the Commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to the City Council if necessary. So item 5A is PLZC 2024-0227. Hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 218 acres of land from agricultural district, more specifically known as Comal County. Property identification number is 79001, 78946, 75480, 78247, 79009, and 79006, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Usually it says rezone to from. Did we leave something out here?
I'll explain.
All right. You press ahead.
Great. Good evening, Commission. So this is for PLCC 2024-0227, approximately 218-acre zoning to agricultural district, Emily Delgado, Planning Manager. So as some background, you might remember earlier this year, and then specifically in July, there were City Council meetings, specifically July 2nd, where City Council approved ordinances annexing and establishing a zoning designation for over 3,000 acres of land in Bexar, Comal, and Guadalupe County. Originally scheduled as part of the larger annexation process, the Comal County property identification numbers in this zone change were originally planned as part of that group, but based on a request of the property owner, they were actually pulled from that original group and from the original zoning that took place on July 2nd. However, on July 16th, the City Council did meet and approved Resolution 24R81, which authorized a development agreement with Charlene and Timothy Fye and Sandra Ray. As part of the development agreement, the property owners agreed to have their agricultural land annexed into the city and zoned. Based on that agreement at the July 16th meeting, these property IDs were annexed. However, the zoning for the mass group, right, if you remember when we did all the annexations, we did the zoning as like big chunks. That zoning case was on the July 2nd meeting, so it never actually got a zoning district established. So that's why it's not a from this to this. It doesn't have a zoning district still, so we're establishing it for the first time. There is currently no development plan for these properties. Again, it's just based on them being annexed in July and they need a zoning district established. So there are those properties. This is FM 482 to get your bearings. And then the properties here, I have another picture of it here, shows it a little clearer. On September 19th, 9 public hearing notices were sent. We've received 3 responses in favor, and signs were placed on FM 482 on September 20th. So the proposal is to agricultural district, which is consistent with the rest of the properties that were annexed in July. So you can see the rest of the agricultural districts here that were annexed. And then, as I mentioned, part of that development agreement is the residential homestead is being left under a development agreement. So that's where the DVL here is, and then this section here. So just like all the rest of the zoning cases, we look at 2154D for the criteria for approval. So number 1, whether the proposed zoning change or zoning map amendment implements the policies of the adopted comprehensive land plan, including the land use classification of the property on the future land use map. So these properties do have 3 different land use categories. So 79006 is development deferment, 79009 is local corridor, and then 79001, 78946, 75480, and 78247 are all regional corridor. Although the subject parcels have different comprehensive land use plan designations, the proposed agricultural district is consistent with the comp plan. It's also consistent with the adjacent properties and what's existing on the properties as well. Number 2, whether the proposed zoning change or zoning map amendment promotes the health, safety, or general welfare of the city and the safe, orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. The city should encourage development compatible with surrounding uses, utilizing standards and transitional uses to alleviate negative impacts. The agricultural district that is proposed as that base zoning allows for agricultural and residential uses. Again, that is what these properties are being used for today. Number 3, whether the uses permitted by the proposed change in zoning district classification and the standards applicable to such uses will be appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. The subject parcels are currently utilized for ag, so the agricultural district is appropriate along with the properties around it. Number 4, whether the proposed change is in accord with any existing or proposed plans for providing public schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewer, other public services. Notice was mailed to Comal ISD of the proposed zoning. Addition to Schertz, Police, Fire, and EMS reviewed the zoning case as well and provided no objections. And again, as I stated earlier, no development plans are proposed. However, with the properties basically having no zoning designation at this point, the most appropriate action is to establish a zoning since they were just annexed. Number 5, whether there have been environmental or economical changes which warrant the requested change. There have not been environmental or economical changes. Again, they were just recently annexed and a zoning designation wasn't established. Number 6, whether there's an error in the original zoning. Again, there is no zoning currently. Number 7, whether all the applicants' back taxes owed to the city have been paid in full. They don't owe any taxes. Again, they just got annexed in July. Number 8, whether other criteria are met, which at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council are deemed relevant and important. Staff has ensured all UDC requirements have been met, and at this time have not received any special considerations. Due to the subject properties being annexed, they need to have an established zoning district. The agricultural district is the most appropriate with the surrounding and what's currently being utilized for the property, and staff is recommending approval.
All right, thank you. So the applicant have a presentation? No? All right, dodging the reflections up there, it is 6:08 p.m. and I'll open the floor for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this topic is welcome to step forward. Nobody. Going once, twice. Closed. All right, it is still 6:08. Public input, public comment is closed. Commissioners, anyone have anything? No? All right, this is a recommendation to City Council. If anyone would, we can approve, we can recommend approval, we can recommend denial, we can recommend approval with conditions. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of PLZC 20240227.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve or recommend approval from Commissioner McMaster and a second from Commissioner Carbone. Any further discussion or comments? All right, please record your votes. All right, I have 7 votes. Would you publish that, please? I have 7 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes.
Question for tech guy.
All right,
Is the Wi-Fi on? Testing that.
can you hear us back there? No, in the booth back there. You give us just a sec here.
Is the Wi-Fi on? Is the Wi-Fi signal on? It is?
Okay. All right, a little tech issue there. In the meantime, all right, item 5B is PLZC 2024-0210. Hold a public hearing to make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 1.4 acres of land from Office and Professional District to Neighborhood Services District, generally located 250 feet south of the intersection of Antler Drive and FM 3009, more specifically known as Guadalupe County Property Identification Number 20412, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. PLZC 2024-0210, an approximately 1.4 acre zone change from Office Professional District to Neighborhood Services District. Daisy Marquez, Planner. So here's the subject property outlined in green. It is located along FM 3009, also known as Roy Richard. It is approximately 1.4 acres and it is located in Guadalupe County. And it is currently undeveloped. Here it is again outlined in yellow. It is currently zoned Office Professional District, and it is completely surrounded by properties zoned single-family residential district that are currently being used for single-family residences. And then to the east is, again, the right-of-way known as FM 309, also known as Roy Richard. And then all the way up here to the north is Antler Drive, and then down here to the south is Savannah Drive. That's kind of cut off. On September 17th, we sent out a total of 12 public hearing notices. As of October 1st, we received one in favor from the applicant, and then one sign was posted on the property, and it will be posted in the San Antonio Express before City Council, and it will be tentatively scheduled for the November 12th City Council meeting. Just so you know, you're not having deja vu. This was previously applied for a proposed zone change for the same subject property, for the same acreage, for Office Professional District to Neighborhood Services District at the subject property, and the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing in May 2024, and the Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation for a denial with a 5-1 vote to City Council, but the applicant withdrew the application before it could be heard at City Council. And the proposed zone change is for approximately 1.4 acres of land to Neighborhood Services District, and the applicant wishes to rezone the property to develop an automated car wash. So again, staff goes through UDC section 2154D, the criteria for approval for a zone change, and I'm going to go through those. One, whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment implements the policies of the comprehensive land use plan, including the land use classification of the property on the future land use map. So the subject property outlined here in yellow with the star is classified as local corridor, and staff believes that Neighborhood Services District does not implement the policies of the adopted comprehensive land use plan. And this is because local corridor land use designation is meant to contain conventional retail centers, small-scale mixed use, multifamily development, and residential uses that are of scale and intensity compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. To the northwest and south of the subject property, the properties are single-family residential district R1 and are used for single-family residences. And to the east of the property is FM 3009 and is the subject property's only access point currently. And although the subject property is located on FM 309 and has that access, it is completely surrounded by single-family residentially zoned properties that are currently used for single-family homes. And I did confirm before this meeting that this property owner owns these 2 lots and he uses them as one single lot, and he uses it for his home as well. And as a result of the subject property being nestled within the single-family residences, the proposed zone change to Neighborhood Services District is not compatible. 2, whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment promotes the health, safety, or general welfare of the city and the safe, orderly, efficient, and helpful development of the city. The proposed Neighborhood Services District dimensional development standards, as stated in Section 2157B of the UDC, are not compatible with what is in the immediately surrounding area. The existing office professional district is more compatible with the immediate surrounding area, as it is the least intense commercial zoning district we have currently. And as per UDC Section 2156, the purpose and intent of the office professional district is to provide ancillary retail services, which may include things like restaurants, coffee shops, and newsstands for office developments. And although the proposed neighborhood services district is intended to provide suitable areas for development of certain limited services and retail uses in proximity to residential uses, it is also intended to be properly buffered from residential uses as per UDC Section 2156, but the location of the subject property is completely surrounded by single-family residences. 3, whether the uses permitted by the proposed change in zoning district classification and standards applicable to such uses will be appropriate and the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. So again, the subject property is completely surrounded by single-family residential district properties that are used for single-family residences. And although this subject property does have access to FM 309, it is not immediately adjacent to other neighborhood services district properties or properties that are already used for commercial purposes. Here are the uses allowed by right for neighborhood services district listed, and the uses permitted by right in office professional district. And many of the allowed uses in neighborhood services district are not appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. The existing office professional district are permitted uses are more appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. 4, whether the proposed zone change is in accord with any of the existing or proposed plans for providing schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, or other public services and utilities to the area. So the subject property and surrounding area is serviced by the city of Schertz for water and sewer. And along FM 309, there's an existing 12-inch water line and 8-inch sewer line. And FM 309 is a TxDOT road and is classified as a principal arterial with a planned 120 to 130 foot right-of-way width. And the subject property has an existing curb cut on FM 3009, but any proposed driveways will need to be reviewed by the City of Schertz Engineering Department and TxDOT. And the City of Schertz Police, Fire, and EMS departments have reviewed the proposed zone change. And the police department expressed concerns in relation to the potential number of vehicles within the automated car wash, in relation to the stacking on site and potential traffic flow issues, including overflow onto FM 3009. The applicant did not submit a conceptual or proposed site plan with their zone change application submittal, so we could not respond to the police department concerns. 5, whether there have been any environmental or economical changes which warrant the requested change. So FM 309 has been developing as a corridor that serves the local needs of residents and the surrounding neighborhoods. And although this subject property is located along FM 309 and can take advantage of that immediate access it has onto this right-of-way, the location of this proposed zone change is inappropriate to the surrounding neighborhood due to the adjacent single-family residences. And there was no error in this original zoning of the property. The subject property was annexed into the city of Schertz in the early 70s. And 7, whether all of the applicant's back taxes owed to the city have been paid in full. This does not impact the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to City Council. 8, whether all of the other criteria are met, which at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council are deemed relevant and important in the consideration of the amendment. So staff has ensured all UDC requirements have been met for the proposed zone change, and at this time have not received any special consideration from the Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council. So UDC Article 9 requires additional screening between residential and commercial uses, which does require a solid 8-foot masonry wall with a 20-foot landscape buffer and one tree every 30 linear feet. And although these additional site design requirements are in place to create additional buffering between the single-family homes and commercial uses, there are concerns over the uses allowed within the proposed neighborhood services district that are not compatible with the surrounding area. So due to the incompatibility of the proposed neighborhood services district within an enclave of single-family residential district properties, staff recommends denial of PLZC 2024-0210. And the applicant is here and has a presentation as well.
Hi, good evening. James Griffin, Killen Griffin and Behrman, here on behalf of the applicant, WCW Watershed Car Wash. Thank you all for your time this evening. As Daisy mentioned, y'all, and I'm sure y'all remember, heard this recently, and after the hearing and the recommendation, our folks pulled the rezoning request. Wanted to come back and not try to waste y'all's time or just hope for a better answer, but we felt that really didn't give y'all much information, if any, on what this proposed use was going to be, why it was appropriate, and really just left out not just some important facts, but probably all of them. So wanted to really give y'all some illustrations, better details on what's being proposed and why we think it's appropriate here. Yes, sir.
Pull that mic up a little bit.
Is that better?
That helps. Thank you.
So let's see if we can get y'all a little bit more information here. And Daisy, gave you the rundown. I'm sure y'all are familiar with the location. We're just under 1.5 acres in size, right there on 3009. Has been zoned office professional for quite some time, but you can see from this aerial in the next few slides, there's neighborhood services, really the entire block across the street, quite a bit all around us, and then again, we are on 3009. As far as the city's comprehensive plan and the future land use designation, you heard some of those kind of highlights from the local corridor, which is what this is designated. Here's another kind of snippet from the comprehensive plan. It says local corridor land use is described as locally oriented commercial and entertainment uses typically situated along medium to high volume collector roads with neighborhoods at their perimeter. And that's really what we have here. You have really a higher classification road. 3009 is a TxDOT road. It's a primary arterial. You do have residential on the periphery, off to the east, off to the west. You have these neighborhoods, but in fact, this entire block, if not more, was all one property decades ago, and there was a reason. Just like in most, planning situations, you have the residential off of the main road. And then you have neighborhood commercial, neighborhood support services up along the main road with those adequate buffers, in between. And we'll get to the site plan in just a second, but another key piece there from the plan and otherwise is the scale and intensity and being compatible with the uses. We have a very small building, low impact, low intensity, shuts down when the sun goes down or earlier, and really is that perfect neighborhood support service, low intensity, compatible scale project. There's another aerial there. Some of those surrounding uses kind of all fall in line with the neighborhood services. These are the things you want close to home. Oil change, car wash, some smaller restaurants, a few medical offices, and this next one. So here you go, seeing them labeled. You have your Walgreens, your oil change, your coffee drive-through, breakfast spot. Really all sorts of neighborhood commercial retail uses supporting the neighborhoods that are pushed back further off of 3009. Really probably have everything there. The only thing missing is a car wash. As far as the zoning, and as was mentioned several times, almost every slide was that we're surrounded by residential uses and residential zoning, which technically we are surrounded on three sides by residential zoning, but that I really don't think tells the whole story. As you see here, the residential zoning to our south is a driveway that was created for the home that's set back pretty significantly off to our rear, off to the west. That has been in place since these properties were subdivided and kind of broken up way back when. It is not a home by any means, although it is a driveway to a home. Right on the other side of that driveway, you have PDD, then neighborhood services, and again, neighborhood services, the entire block on the other side. You can see the blue and the purple there as well, showing that continuity of commercial zoning, commercial uses, neighborhood services. And even on the northern side, although we do abut, a home in a residential zoning district there, the corner lot, as was mentioned, owned by the adjacent homeowner, but not a home there. So yes, technically we are surrounded by residential zoning, but really looking at that aerial, looking at that zoning map, you see it's commercial, neighborhood services. I won't read that whole thing up there, but there's some key pieces there about neighborhood services and really why it fits in this location on this property. Limited service and retail uses in proximity to residential neighborhoods. Neighborhood services, by its name, by its design, was meant to complement neighborhoods, be compatible, complement them. Really perfect situation here of having acre-and-a-half property on 3009 to complement and be compatible with the residential setback behind us. And down there at the bottom, I know there was mention of neighborhood services opening up the allowable uses beyond what we're requesting. We've drafted a set of restricted covenants that we would file before this went to City Council to restrict against any undesirable uses, some of those potentially bad uses, although really everything in that district fits kind of the area for those reasons I mentioned. There you go, looking at the zoning map again, you see, although we have orange all around us, really what's more definitive or representative, I guess I should say, of the area of this property and surrounding properties is neighborhood services, commercial retail that supports the neighborhoods setback further off. So here are some actual details, and this is our more technical site plan. Have a better illustration to show the buffers and landscaping proposed as well. But you see here, small building, 4,000 square feet in total, 26 parking spaces, plenty of room, and really, they design it to make sure that even at its busiest, there's no stacking anywhere close to the driveway, and they have the good circulation and run an efficient operation there where you're really only there for a few minutes. I mean, it is. I go through one actually probably once or twice a week on my way into the office every morning. It's a 5-minute detour that gets the car clean. Maybe some of the more important details here, you see all around the perimeter, there'll be a 20-foot minimum landscape buffer, a significant amount of trees and other landscaping going in there on all 4 sides. The code also requires an 8-foot masonry wall where abutting residential. So because of that residential zoning district that we abut on all 3 sides, even though there's not homes everywhere or on each of those sides, 8-foot wall, 20-foot landscape buffer. There's also a significant grade change from our rear property line at the back there down to the 3009 pavement. It drops almost 30 feet. So we'll be cutting into the site to make it level, more level, which drops us at the backside at least 10 feet down. So you're going to be significantly lower than any residential, next to us and beyond, plus the wall, plus the landscaping. Basically, you will not be able to see this use in any regard from the neighborhood, from adjacent properties. That grade really adds some additional buffers in addition to the landscape buffers, again, 20 plus feet. So really kind of who you would want as a neighbor if the site is to be developed. Here's a better picture of it, kind of showing what those buffers look like all around, as well as the landscaping throughout, up against the tunnel itself, and tree preservation and additional planting, really, everywhere we can, but most importantly, along the entire perimeter of the site. A little bit more details, like I said, about a 4,000 square foot building, express car wash, 120-foot tunnel. You have 24 vacuum stalls. Rarely are they ever all full at one time. Hours of operation, they open up at 7 a.m., they close at 7 p.m. Or earlier if the sun goes down. I mean, basically, it's the earlier of 7 p.m. or when the sun goes down. When they close, the site is secured, the lights are off. If there ever is the need for lighting, it is all dark sky compliant, downward lighting. But again, everything shuts off really when the sun goes down. Couple quick items on environmental benefits, and that says currently over 50% water reclaimed. WCW, Watershed Car Wash, has just engaged, embraced some new technology. If this gets approved, this will be one of the first sites in the area to use this, and it's basically 100% water reclamation. Right now, the typical car wash spends 50 plus gallons for each car that is washed. This system that Watershed has, about 3 gallons per car, and that's just really kind of what is still dripping off the car that hasn't been dried off or fallen down, filtered, and reclaimed. So really state-of-the-art technology. WCW, family company, very experienced in car washes, and they spend a lot of time, effort, money, focus on environmental benefits and water conservation measures. More on the project. It's all secured, locked up, lights off when they close. Really experienced, quality family-run operation that wants to be a partner here in the community. Here are more of the back to details, probably already went over, so won't dwell here too long, but you can see, where those buffers are, where that 8-foot masonry wall is, and just, how well buffered we are, both from primary arterial of 3009, as well as residential areas kind of off to the west. Here's what I mentioned earlier. There is some concern about some potentially undesirable uses that are otherwise allowed in the neighborhood services. We intend to do a car wash, want to do a car wash. We strongly believe there's a need and that it's compatible. So willing to file in the deed records that'll run with the property, regardless of who owns it in the future, however many years down the road, that you can't have maybe what might be considered some of those more intense uses like auto parts sales or even a drive-in, group home, convenience store, those sort of things. That's my last slide. So happy to answer any questions. Really appreciate y'all's time and willingness to reconsider this. This, again, not to repeat myself again too much, I guess, but this really is a compatible use. FM 3009, as I think was mentioned earlier, one of the quotes from the future land use plan and focusing on 3009 is that it serves the local needs of residents and the surrounding neighborhoods. And that's what we're trying to do here. That's the neighborhood services zoning that we're requesting, and that's the use that we're requesting as well. It's a low intensity use, again, serves the neighborhood, consistent with the neighborhood plan, significant landscaping, buffering, masonry wall, mixed with the grade change and elevation, drastic elevation drops, as well as the downward dark sky lighting, limited hours, and everything else. Really make this the perfect, we believe, use, and again, the zoning certainly compatible with just about everything you see across 3009, down further on our side down 3009, and it fits, it makes sense, and we respectfully ask for your support. Again, sorry to ramble on there, but happy to answer any questions if y'all have any.
All right.
Thank y'all again.
Shane. Okay, this is a public hearing. It is 6:37 p.m. and I'll open the floor for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this subject is welcome to step forward. Where is everybody tonight? You sent the notices out and posted the sign, right? Anybody? All right, come on up. Need your name and address for the record.
My name is Dennis Kacherka. I'm the owner of the said property. I live in Seguin. I have a house there in right down the street from there is my parents' house. My son is living there with his wife and 2 sons.
Could I have your address there in Seguin?
1328 Circle Oak Drive. 1328 Circle Oak Drive is where they're. The last time I was here, Judy, I don't think you were here maybe when I made these presentations of how this all came about. And I was around back before 3009 was here. It was a turn row for a tractor back in the day, so a lot of things have changed. My father was a realtor. He put together the Savannah Square construction and did a lot of work with Mr. Beck that owned all of that property up in there, and a lot that 3009 was, and maybe some of you may or may not have known Mr. Beck, but he's quite a fellow. But anyhow, my dad and I and Mr. Beck got along really well together. That it's surrounded by residential on 3 sides, and I think that's just what y'all are looking at. That's what says, well, we can't change the zoning because of that reason. Originally, there was an easement through that property, and it was an easement for Mr. Beck to go to his house. And the back fence line was staggered by, I think, 20 feet. And my dad wanted to make everything square and even, so Mr. Beck and my dad says, hey, let's swap properties. I'll give you this easement here, and you give me land in the back, and that's why that fence line was moved back. Now it's a wooden privacy fence. They got an electric gate in there, and it really looks nice in there. But that's how that was changed. And I think Mr. Beck and my dad didn't realize what that's going to mean later. But that's the only reason. It's a driveway. It's just a driveway. And that's what's stopping the whole project. If you look at this picture right here, do you see anything in Schertz, Universal City, that looks like this? The landscaping, everything. It would add to the artistic appeal of 3009. And I highly recommend accepting this. A lot of effort's been put into making something special. All the requirements for the building codes, sound, lighting, everything has been addressed here. These people, they've got, I don't know, what is it, 34 car washes or something? And New Braunfels all over the place. They're not new to this. And they got the very latest technology on water conservation. And that's a plus for us, I think. And to be able to have something like that close to an area there in Circle Oak Drive, majority of the people out there is retired. And it would be nice to have a car wash close to where the people live, the retired folks are. But that's what is holding this thing up, is because the driveway was changed and now it's classified as, but nobody lives there. My dad owned the property where the Jiffy Lube is, and he sold that to the guy, sold him a half acre of land. And then about 3 years later, that same guy says, look, I want to put in another car wash, a little dinky car wash. So he wanted to buy another half acre. So he sold him another half acre for the same price. And that's how that became all commercial. Well, the car wash that was there, I drove up there to get my car washed, and it was terrible. I never went back again. It was poorly managed. But this is modern technology, the very best you can get on the planet. And it's not the same. It's just not the same. So please consider that if you would.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? Okay, it is 6:42 p.m. and the public comment is closed. Let me start this discussion. Y'all make it very difficult. This is a zoning issue, not a car wash issue, okay? All right. Anybody who wants to start? Go ahead, Clay.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a question for staff. So specifically, you're saying denial of the neighborhood services due to the fact that it's surrounded by residential, even though it's realistically the only office professional zoning type along 3009.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So the only thing that the main argument for denial of the request is the fact that it's surrounded by residential.
Essentially, yes. And there's a story of all the office professional and the commercial kind of in this area. For example, even this FM 309 laser wash subdivision that's right here, It's a PDD for a reason.
Yeah.
The PDD is based off of office professional, but it's specifically written so that it allows the Jiffy Lube, like quick lube changes, and only that specific use that NS like allows. But
Yeah.
it's based off of office professional. So it doesn't allow NS uses.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hard part, at least for me, is the fact that every other commercial property along 3009 is either NS or general commercial as you get closer to 35.
Yeah, especially as we start getting further north and into this Deer Haven subdivision, the community has been very active when it comes into commercial within their subdivision. Before you've come in onto this commission, there was a proposed zone change further up north, and the community came up out in arms against it.
Yeah.
And we heard them loud and clearly.
But I think another thing to point out, Commissioner Wallace, is even if you just look at the properties across 3009, sure, they're neighborhood services, but the residential is just to the rear. This is one of the few properties on 3009 that has residential on a side. So the neighborhood services make sense if residential is just to the rear. It acts like that buffer between 3009 and the residential. But this property is, it may seem like it's just surrounded by residential, but that is a key piece that differentiates this being office professional versus the neighborhood services on the rest of 3009.
Okay. Y'all, just a general question. So let's say the office professional was kept. Can you do a conditional use? So could you do an office professional with a conditional use for car wash or a conditional use for a specific item?
So we would have to rewrite the UDC for something like that. That would be something y'all would have to request if that's something you want staff to look into.
Okay, so you're stating now that we couldn't make a conditional use. So we couldn't do a conditional
So
use
currently,
for,
as
okay.
the UDC is written, neighborhood services is where car wash automated is allowed by right in a zoning district. If you want us to amend the UDC so that we permit with an approved specific use permit, car wash automated within office professional district, then we can look into that.
Okay.
And we can look into that UDC amendment.
Yeah, Clay,
Yeah,
I
that's
think the
getting a
answer
little
you're
too
looking
deep,
for
is
right
no.
now is no.
Yeah.
A car wash is not allowed in OP there's no specific use permit.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, John, go ahead.
So earlier you said that the emergency services did not want this to be a car wash. Is that correct?
Well, they had concerns about the overflow
Yes.
of cars stacking.
Thank you. That was what you said. Okay. It's been a minute. So, and then they said that they didn't get the plans so they could review them.
The conceptual site plan was not submitted with the application. That was presented to us tonight as well. That was not part of the zone change application. So that has not been reviewed by staff, and that was not reviewed. So that's conceptual, and that was also seen by us tonight.
So this is kind of last minute, would you say? And obviously, emergency services hasn't looked at it either, correct?
No, and again, this is a zone change application, so this is not a car wash.
No, I get it, but would there typically be more time between when you saw it and when it came to the Planning and Zoning Committee meetings?
The hard part here, and I'm going to jump in here as the chairman, again, we're not talking about, or we shouldn't be talking about the car wash.
I'm not, sir.
Well, but
I
we
was talking
are,
about whether or
and-
not emergency services had time to review
It shouldn't make a difference because traffic impact analysis is not part of a zoning request.
I get it, but
So
she
the
brought up that
PD
whether or not the emergency services had time to review it and whether or not that was part of their recommendation. Obviously, that weighed into their recommendation. If it wasn't that part of that recommendation, they wouldn't have even stated so, correct?
I don't know. All I'm saying is the police department, as far as I'm concerned, the police department's comments about traffic are inappropriate for the zoning change. Whether they saw it 3 weeks at a time or whether they're just seeing it today. That is an inappropriate comment. It's just like, I'm sorry, you know, it's a really nice presentation you put together, okay? But it's not about the car wash. It's about neighborhood services. Is that the appropriate zoning for this lot? Okay? And unfortunately, you can put all the deed restrictions and covenants you want on the property. The city has no enforcement authority, none. Okay? We really need to find an easier way to do these, okay, so that we can talk zoning without what it is that they want to do with the property. You know, would you put the neighborhood services stuff back up there again? So what we really need to be thinking about tonight is, you see the list of things there, that if we rezone, or we don't rezone it, if we recommend approval to rezone it, and city council rezones this property neighborhood services, any one of those things could be built there. So the question is are those the kinds of things we would be okay if they put on that property? I mean, I understand where the police department's coming from. I live in Savannah Square, and the last thing we need is another driveway on 3009, okay? But that's not the issue tonight. I love the project. It looks really nice. But would we want to see, and you know, you guys have acknowledged that right next door, there was a car wash there. Now, this whole thing about surrounded by residential, okay, it may be a little unique that not only do they have it behind it, but they have it beside it, okay? But we knew you know, the city should have known they were going to run into this eventually. When you know, the way they allow the residential development all the way to the roadway. We're going to see it up here on Schertz Parkway. Well, no, because across the street is Office Professional, but that Office Professional backs up. Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry to be so animated about this, but it's a continuing issue we have with these zoning requests. It's not about what they want to build on it. It's about whether or not that's the correct zoning for the property. How do you know, it's like watching a jury trial and the lawyer says something they're not supposed to, and the defense objects, and the judge says, and then he says the jury will disregard. Well, sorry, they've already heard it. Okay, I don't know how you do that. I'm sorry, John, but
No need to apologize. This is what we're supposed to do. This is called discourse in a respectful manner. I think at the end of the day, I think the appropriate, in my opinion, zoning is R4, but that's not what they're building there, right? And so what you hit on at the last point is that they already told us what they want to do. So for me to disregard what they already told us
I
is
understand.
basically saying, can you please not remember it? And that's not the way the world works. They came up here and did a presentation and said, this is what we want to
Exactly.
build.
And
And I appreciate their open and honest saying, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out whether or not, I lost my track of thought here. Somebody save me here. Jump in the water.
whether or not it's appropriate to put this type of business there?
Yeah, I think part of what I struggled with, because I wrote a couple of things down, I think this property came up in May, didn't it? And wasn't there like 400 people in here saying no? Or was that another
I
property?
think it was further down, and it had a drainage issue and flooding and all that. That's what
Okay,
all that
because that's
was
what I
about.
wrote. I was like, isn't this full of flooding area? Because you did say that it drops down significantly and there is a incline. Yeah.
Well, you know, here, again, would you want to see a McDonald's on that spot? Would a McDonald's be appropriate there?
In my opinion, I think any of these neighborhood services would fit well in that location. I live off 3009. I use it all the time, up and down. I'm in and out. It's nice to have the convenience of something like this. Any of these.
What is directly behind this piece of property?
Directly behind this property, a single-family home.
Just one? Just one?
Yes, it's one home.
And
And then these,
it's R1. Is it part of the other residential community that's to the side of it?
So-
Is it the same community?
so this is a separate, like, unit of Deer Haven, and this is also Deer Haven, but it's just a separate unit of it.
So it's two residences it affects. The one that owns the corner lot of Deer Haven and the one home that's way set back off to the back. Is that correct? And a long driveway?
So this driveway belongs to these people, and then this individual, and then these people as well. Let's see if I can pull up the buffer map. So all these people are within the 200-foot buffer, and these people also as well within that PDD.
So the previous car wash that's now the inspection station for Take 5, that also had those residences to the rear and had the driveway. So it was also residential on the back and on the side there.
Well, as she explained earlier, Savannah Square is a PDD. And those two lots, the Take 5 and the Laser Wash, they are part of that Savannah Square PDD, correct? And that PDD specifically allowed oil change places and car washes. That was in the PDD, okay? So that was not subject to city review or approval once the PDD got approved. And that all was done, well, we moved in 89, but I think the subdivision was probably done around 85-ish. Does that sound about right? Somewhere in there? So, but, you know, this is an interesting map to look at because the residence to the rear isn't, you know, it just barely touches the 200-foot notification buffer. And then you really only have one residence fully on the side, and then one abuts a corner of the property. Yeah,
No.
jump on in here, Audrey.
No residents replied to the notices?
So not at this time, but they do have until the Friday before the first hearing at council at noon.
Then, okay. That didn't seem to make sense. I'm just saying. So we don't know whether they have whether they'll respond or not. Right.
Per UDC, we give them until the Friday before the first hearing of council to respond to the public hearing notice. So it's not just like a week or two to respond.
Okay. But not prior to us taking up the zoning.
Well, Roderick, I think
Sir?
one of the differences is this property takes its access right directly from 3009, whereas one of the others we looked at where the room was full of people, the only access to the property was off Antler, I believe, or no, not Antler, the next one. Because Antler is where the traffic light is. So that the only access was off Fawn, which if you've never driven through Deerhaven, I recommend you do it. It's,
No.
I don't know how long that's been there, but the streets really don't look like city streets. And yeah, that was the big issue. And, here we're taking access directly off 3009.
And there's no light there.
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe these folks aren't home. Maybe they're off traveling somewhere and they, who knows why they're not here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
I gotta tell you, anybody else got anything? I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I really am. So,
Can I make a recommendation, please?
who's talking?
Me, sir.
John? Sure, go ahead. Put the motion out there.
All right. I make a recommendation to approve PLZC 20240210 as written.
Second.
All right, once again, remember this is a recommendation to City Council, and I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of PLZC 2024-0210. Is there any further discussion? If not, please record your votes. All right, I see 7 votes. Can you publish that vote, please? I have 5 ayes, 2 nays. That motion's approved. Well, it's not done yet. Okay, now you still have to go convince City Council. They're not as, well, I'll leave it there. No, I mean, I was going to comment again. It is so difficult to do these because the issue is the zoning, not the project. And we just don't seem to be able to separate those two. And those of you that have been here for a while, you understand what I'm saying. And it's really hard to do. And maybe we just ought to stop trying. Maybe I just should stop trying. So let's see, let me get this down here. There's 5-2, and I just erased it. Wanted to write down who, anyway.
I'm just wondering how many car washes we need in this town. There's two more under construction at the moment.
All righty.
Do realize that car washes and like laundromats are like the biggest money makers for small business.
Okay,
But that don't mean they're appropriate to be put everywhere.
yeah. All right, we're past that one, folks. Okay, you can, we'll meet, you can continue that discussion out front if you want to. What, did we run somebody off? Oh, nobody said this job was going to be easy. All right, good night, gentlemen. Okay, item 5C. Hold a public hearing and make a recommendation. Let's see, appeal SPU 2024-0183. Hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on a specific use permit to allow a manufactured/mobile home on approximately 2 acres of land known as 6759 File Road, also known as Bear County Property Identification Number 1296079, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas. Who's going to talk to us about this one? Okay, come on up.
Good evening. PLSPU 2024-0183, a specific use permit for approximately 2 acres of land, 6759 File Road, Daisy Marquez Planner. Here's the subject property outlined in green, approximately 2 acres. It is currently undeveloped. It is located in the APZ2, and it is currently platted, and it is part of the East Central Village Unit 1B subdivision. It is currently zoned single-family residential agricultural district, and the surrounding properties are also zoned single-family residential agricultural district and are used for single-family residences. And to the east is File Road. On September 17th, we sent out a total of 10 public hearing notices, and as of October 2nd, we received 1 in opposition, 0 in favor, and 1 neutral. 1 sign was posted on the property by the applicant, and it will be posted in the San Antonio Express before City Council, and it will be tentatively scheduled for the November 12, 2024 City Council meeting. So the applicant is requesting an SUP to allow a manufactured home on approximately 2 acres of land zoned single-family residential agricultural district known as 6759 File Road. The subject property is currently undeveloped and is part of the East Central Village Unit 1B subdivision. And as per UDC Section 2158, a SUP is required for the placement of a manufactured home in single-family residential agricultural district RA. So when we're looking at specific use permits, we look to criteria 21511D, and I will go through these one by one. So 1, the proposed use at the specified location is consistent with the policies embodied in the adopted comprehensive land use plan. So the subject property is designated as rural living in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, and here is the subject property with the star on top of it. So rural living is described as sparse development, natural landscapes, and agriculture activity that emphasizes compatibility with JBSA. So the proposed SUP meets this intent of rural living land use designation, as it is proposing the placement of a manufactured home on approximately 2 acres of already platted land that is intended to be their main residence. And the applicant has received an affirmative recommendation from JBSA for their proposed use, which is also consistent with the intent of rural living land use designation. So 2, the proposed use is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the applicable zoning district regulations. So the purpose and intent of single-family residential agriculture is to provide areas for which the agricultural land may be held in such use for as long as practical and reasonable, and in areas that are unsuitable for development because of physical constraints as per UDC Section 2155. The proposed use is consistent with this zoning district, and the use is allowed within single-family residential agricultural district. Due to the location of the subject property within the APZ2, the SUP was reviewed by JBSA, and this SUP did receive an affirmative recommendation from JBSA. 3, the proposed use is compatible with and preserves the character and integrity of adjacent developments and neighborhoods, and includes improvements in either on-site within public rights-of-way to mitigate development and related adverse impacts such as safety, traffic, noise, odors, visual nuisances, drainage, or other similar adverse effects to adjacent development and neighborhoods. So in the surrounding areas, there is sparse residential development along Fowle Road, and the applicant is proposing to use the subject property for the same use as the surrounding properties. The only difference is that the subject property is proposing a manufactured home, and a manufactured home requires an SUP for placement within single-family residential agricultural district. 4, the proposed use does not generate pedestrian vehicular traffic, which will be hazardous or conflict with the existing and anticipated traffic in the neighborhood. So again, this proposed use will not generate additional traffic that conflicts with what is existing and anticipated in the existing neighborhood, because it will also be a single-family residence. And the proposed use incorporates roadway adjustments, traffic control devices or mechanisms, and access restrictions to control traffic flow or divert traffic as may be needed to reduce or eliminate development-generated traffic on neighborhood streets. The subject is already platted. It does not include additional road improvements. The applicant is requesting the placement of a manufactured home on the subject property. 6, the proposed use incorporates features to minimize adverse effects, including visual impacts of the proposed use on adjacent properties. So the subject property is zoned RA and is adjacent to other RA zone properties, so no additional screening is required per UDC. And if the SCP is approved, the applicant will need to submit all required subsequent development applications to meet the City of Schertz development standards. 7, whether the proposed use meets the standards of the zoning district or to the extent variations from such standards have been requested, that such variations are necessary to render the use compatible with the adjoining development and the neighborhood. So this proposed development will have to meet all dimensional and design requirements of the single-family residential agricultural district as stipulated in Article 5 of the UDC. But the applicant is not requesting a zone change and no variances are being requested, and the zoning is compatible with and matches with what is existing in the area. 8, the proposed use promotes the health, safety, or general welfare of the city and orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. So the existing single-family residential agricultural district zoning of the general area and existing land uses of rural residences are compatible with the proposed manufactured home. And additionally, since the property is located within the APZ2, they were required to receive an affirmative recommendation of the proposed use from JBSA. And the City of Schertz Fire, EMS, and Police Departments have been notified of the SCP requests and have not provided objections to this request. 9, no applications made on this provision will receive final approval until all back taxes owed to the city have been paid in full. This does not impact the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to the City Council. And 10, other criteria which at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council are deemed relevant and important in the consideration of the SCP. And again, at this time, the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council have not provided additional criteria for consideration of this SCP. So staff recommends approval of PLSPU 2024-0183 due to the proposed use being consistent with the policies of the comprehensive plan and being compatible with the surrounding area. Any comments or questions?
All right, thank you. Is the applicant present? No? All righty, let's see. It is 7:11 p.m. This is a public hearing. At this time, we'll open the floor for public input. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this topic is welcome to step forward. No one. I feel lonely tonight, like nobody, I don't know. Nobody? Sure. All right, it is 7:12 p.m. and the public input is closed. Let me start off just with a couple of general questions. I'm trying to figure out how to frame the question. And so if they want to use it, and again, manufactured homes are not like they were 20 years ago, for one. But it's, what I'm wrestling with here is if it's appropriate for a manufactured home to be used, why does it require a special use permit? If the city is okay with manufactured homes for residential use, why does it require a special use permit? I mean, I see, I'm sitting here and I'm reading this, I'm looking at this one reply so far from the public, and they're opposed. And it's a very good point. If we make exceptions, then where does it end? At some point, the zoning codes become ineffective. So, I understand. When does it become a mobile home park? How many do we have to have before we zone it as a mobile home park rather than R2 or? I mean,
I'd have to look, but I think when you look at the manufactured home park subdivision, it's intended for multiple homes on one property, right? Where this is different, it's one large lot, they're looking to put one home on that property. The only difference is it's a manufactured home versus, a standard single-family stick-built home.
And I personally know a couple of people that live in, quote, manufactured homes, and you can't tell them, if you didn't know, you just looking at it and even walking into it, you can't tell it was not site-built. But I don't know that that's true of all of them, see? I mean, they could go out and buy themselves a 20-year-old secondhand mobile home and drag it out there, and I don't know. I guess I'm fishing for some help here, guys.
Well, I have a question. Can you go back to the base zoning page? I'm sorry. Okay, so the base is RA. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
I have no question. I mean, the only comment I had is if we were just told not to consider the car wash when thinking about the zoning, so we shouldn't consider the structure when thinking about the mobile home.
Well, it's a little bit different here because, this is a specific use permit. So it is about, the zoning is already in place. This is about a specific use permit to allow a specific project. So this is different than what.
But I think the clarification is that, yes, for this you're talking about is a manufactured home appropriate, not the quality or
Right.
how the age of the manufactured home,
Yes.
but in general, can a manufactured home be appropriate there?
Correct.
I got that. All right, thank you.
And a large residential, mostly agricultural lot, yes.
And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been down File Road in years. When I was actively working in the fire department, I was out there 3-4 times a month. So I really have no idea what it's out there, but, last time I drove down File Road, what you find are a collection of, some folks have built some really nice homes out there, and other things have been out there for a long time, and you're looking at old farming homesteads. So it's kind of there's a word for it. Why can't I find that word? Well, no, there's a term for a collection of things that aren't necessarily the same.
Collecting.
Yeah, there you go. And,
I do want to say that staff did a site visit out there, and you are correct that it is a mixed salad of development. There is a mix of manufactured homes that are existing out there and what you call traditionally built homes. Because just through Google aerials, roofs look like roofs and they all look the same.
yeah, now up on the northern end there where it meets, what is that runs across there? Not Lower Seguin, Trainer Hale? Our municipal judge used to live in a mobile home out there on a piece of property. So, do you have something, Roderick?
Excuse me. Yes, I was just wondering, have we given any thought to what we want these areas to be or to look like? And so I'm thinking, as we consider all these things, it comes back to what does the city actually allow within these different districts? And it's like we promote eclectic, and and I'm not sure that there's really any consistency, right? So whether I agree with something or not, if it's consistent, I can live with consistent. What causes me to struggle is when today, this week, it might be one thing, then we have some commissioners change, and next year, they think differently because there's no standard. So I'm thinking, you have 2 acres of land and, single family residential agricultural. Well, I'm not sure that even goes together, quite honestly, but so that's the challenge for me.
I think if you want consistent, you would be in a neighborhood or an HOA, something along those lines. If you're going to buy something rural, your desire is to live kind of away from the consistent look of the neighborhood. And unfortunately, in this day and time, it is very, very expensive to build in our economy. And so I think people are looking for alternatives to put that residence and have some space between, if they're wanting to be in a more rural or private setting. So I don't really think there's going to be a standard in more rural areas. And it is the desire of the homeowner to be in a place where it's more private and it's not the norm. It's just too expensive to build right now. And so I think, a manufactured home or something like that allows someone to have that privacy and what they want, and what they purchase that piece of land for is to live there and enjoy life. And if that means a manufactured home, in this day and age, they are very, very nice, and it is hard to tell sometimes the difference once you go inside them. And being in the real estate industry for almost 18 years, I can tell you, it is so expensive to purchase. And mobile homes can only be moved once in order to obtain financing. So the likelihood of getting something that's 20 years old moved over there is very minimal. It'll likely be something that's brand new that gets moved there to the lot, because the next time they move it, they won't be able to get it financed for a new buyer. So just some things to consider.
I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
There's 3 buildings in the back. What is that right now?
I'm unsure, sir.
So those aren't homes, those are maybe connexes or something, or? They kind of look like them now, right? But maybe a connex from the top, like a storage container?
If they're there when they place the manufactured home, because they're going to have to pull a permit to place the manufactured home, the building inspector that goes out there is going to tell them to remove it.
Okay, all right. And then the special use permit is for, it says a manufactured home. So is that just one?
Yes.
So it's going to say one or a?
So in the city of Schertz, right, you can have one single-family residential home. You can have one residential structure per property. We view that versus whether it's a manufactured home or if it's a standard stick-built home, it's one home.
Thank you.
My comment would be 7A, we can request to put something on our agenda. Why don't we request to put something on the agenda to make a recommendation to City Council that they take away the requirement for a special use permit for a manufactured home?
Something to think about. Richard?
I think there's a difference between a manufactured home in this residential area and a manufactured home in Crossvine or Woodbridge or Savannah Square. I think there's a difference. So I think if we make a change like that, that would open the door to all kind of stuff. I don't see a problem with one out this way, but I'd have a couple of more questions. Were you done? Okay. I'm not familiar with, where is it? What is it, East Central Village?
Unit 1B. It's a very, very old subdivision, sir. Like,
Can you show it better on a map than this thing? And do they have any covenants? Do they have any, is it an HOA? Is it any guidelines or standards or anything? It's just a subdivision.
it's just a legal lot of record. There's no HOA, there's no,
Okay. I had another question. Let me remember it.
Yeah, this is old farm country out here.
And this is APZ 2, correct?
yes, sir, correct.
Okay.
What do you mean? What is APC2?
And to answer one of your questions, Rod, this is what the east side of 1518 used to look like, with even not so many lots, but it was the same type of environment. It was farm country, and that's where we're seeing the developers buying up the large areas and putting in subdivisions. What's keeping them from doing it here is this is, as you can see, and as I said, there's some very nice homes in here, is really the being in the APZ. It's the city is struggling with what to do out there and keep Randolph happy. I guess a better example would be Schaefer Road. If you go out 1518 and hang a left on Schaefer and drive back through there, this is what you're going to see. It's the same type of, it's just old farm country. Yes. Did you remember what it was? Did you get your other one answered, Richard?
No, I was going to ask, you said you made a field trip out there? Mm-hmm. And repeat what you said again. What was it? What was your impression when you went out there?
It's a mixed salad.
Okay, all right.
Not a bag.
Thank you.
All right, once again, this is a recommendation to City Council for approval, denial, or approval with conditions for a specific use permit.
Make a motion to approve PLSPU 20240183.
I'll second.
Was McMaster? All right, I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of PLSPU 2024-0183. Is there any further comments or questions? If not, please record your vote. All right, I have 7 votes. You publish that, please. We have 7 ayes and none opposed. So after all of that discussion and all of that heartache and headache and all righty. Well, I guess some of us just like to talk.
You can rest for a while because I'm going to talk now.
Yeah, okay. All right, moving on to 5D. PLUDC 2024-0243, hold a public hearing, workshop, and discussion and possible action to make a recommendation on amendments to the Public Works Design Guide. Kathy?
Good evening, commissioners. Kathy Woodley, City Engineer. So I'll start out by saying that the Public Works Specifications Manual is referenced in the UDC. It's made part of the code by reference, and it's actually made up of 3 different documents. The first is the Public Works Design Guide, which we're going to talk about this evening. That establishes the standard principles, criteria, and practices for the design of infrastructure and to protect and preserve the public welfare. Next is the technical specifications. That's about 1,000 pages of technical details in words that identify the specific material and workmanship requirements of public infrastructure construction projects. And then the last are standard construction details, which are our graphic representations of particular installation elements of the construction of public infrastructure. So regarding the Public Works Design Guide, this is our first formal update since 2016. It includes a significant amount of cleanup of typos and inconsistencies within itself and compared to other documents. It includes clarification of vague guidance and the establishment of increased standards for higher quality and more sustainable infrastructure. So what I'm going to do now, unfortunately, isn't super exciting, but I'm going to run through the highlights of the changes to the document. Some of it is quite technical. A lot of it isn't. I also will bring attention to the items that we're changing that we expected when we started this to get a lot of pushback from the development community about certain standards that we're changing, because it will increase the cost of development in some cases just because of the cost of construction and the increased standards that we're looking to adopt. I will say that we didn't get a ton of pushback. We got some. We also got some compliments from some of our design engineers indicating these are welcome changes to promote better infrastructure. But in any case, I wanted to sort of highlight, okay, these are the ones that we recognize. We're asking for something more than what we've got now. We do understand it will cost a bit more, but we believe in the long run it's better for the citizens. It will save in maintenance costs and resources for the city. So with that, Section 1, general, we clarified the applicability of the design standards to public and private development. Section 2, we updated the submission of plans section to reflect digital submittals. We added a requirement of, in fact, this wasn't an added requirement, but it was a relocated requirement from another section to have engineered plans for retaining walls. And we added the requirement of profiles of 12-inch water mains, which were previously only required for 16 inches and greater. So that's not really a design standard change. It's more just when you're preparing your documents, we want to see profiles of the smaller size water mains. All right, now we get into a little bit more of the meat of the design standards. So Section 3 is about streets. In the pavement design section, we increased pavement design parameters related to loading and structural numbers. That's something that has been a long time coming. Our streets fail for a number of reasons, not only because our structural requirements and loading were somewhat outdated, but also subgrade issues and a variety of things. But one of the things that we did to enhance our design is to increase the structural numbers and loading requirements. We removed the preference against the use of lime for subgrade stabilization. For many years, we did not permit that here in the city of Schertz, but we're going to allow that again. We feel it is an appropriate technology. As far as street layouts, we revised specifications, including the nomenclature and right-of-way pavement widths to be consistent with the master thoroughfare plan. We adjusted several tables to increase maximum allowable pavement slopes. So the tables are the ones that have those slopes shown in them, but this is one of the big ones. So Our current standard is 0.5%. 0.5% is incredibly flat. We're still planning to allow that for concrete pavement, which can be constructed at a lower slope, but it is almost impossible to construct asphalt at a 0.5% slope and be very consistent with it. You'll notice after rains, there are bird baths in pavements, even in brand new subdivisions. It works on paper. Things drain, water runs where it's supposed to run. When it's built, it's even if you have a fantastic contractor, you're going to have minor dips. It's very difficult to get that drainage. The reason it's important to get the drainage isn't just to keep the water flowing down the street, but it's to keep the water from sitting in the street. Minor cracks in the street, water gets into the base of the street, gets into the subgrade. The subgrade causes motion of the street, it cracks further, failure. This is a massive problem in the city, and we believe that having steeper slopes will allow the drainage to occur more efficiently and keep from sitting in the in these ponding areas and be more constructible. We added a limitation of responsibility of roadway dedication and pavement based on limitation of current state statute. The legislature changed last September that we are not able to require dedication of roadway unless certain circumstances exist. We added a reference to multi-use path, which is something that came into being with the master thoroughfare plan, that certain classes of streets require a sidewalk on one side of the street, multi-use path on the other. We increased the strength of concrete for sidewalks and alleys and removed provisions related to overhead utilities and alleys. We removed a reference to the use of geogrid as a mitigation technique for soils with high plasticity because we don't feel that's really an appropriate method for dealing with those soils. We want to see other methodologies used, such as moisture conditioning, cement stabilization, or lime stabilization. We also increased required testing frequency for roadway construction. So increased testing frequency, of course, will be a higher cost. You get some complaints, but truthfully, it is a very nominal cost in the big picture of the millions of dollars of construction costs for roadway construction. Moving on to our storm drainage requirements, we clarified design frequency requirements. We added explicit requirement for stormwater discharge to mimic existing or pre-developed flow characteristics so as not to cause adverse impact to downstream property. What happens, and it was very difficult for us to enforce it in some cases, we do have a requirement that development cannot allow flow rates in excess of pre-developed conditions after development. But a lot of times what will happen is they'll put a detention basin in for that. That's a common thing. They'll control the flow rates. But what happens is previously the water sheet flowed across, kind of using my arm to describe that, sheet flowed across the property line. Now the development is here. They collect all the water in a detention pond and discharge it as a point source. So previously you had all this water spread out over a wide area. Now it's point source, causes problems downstream. And we had a hard time enforcing the fact that you're changing conditions. We didn't really have anything that said you can't change those flow characteristics. So now we will. We added stronger encouragement of provision for post-construction water quality BMPs and requirement of consideration for future retrofit of facility to meet future water quality standards. We don't have any teeth there, but we're trying to put a seed in folks' heads that we're starting to look at those environmental water quality situations that we will be facing as we grow, and environmental criteria for our MS4, our municipal separate storm sewer requirements become actually pollutant-based, and we have to do sampling, and we have to clean the water, and so we're going to have water quality standards one of these days. So this is just starting the conversation about that. Okay, we added a statement disallowing the use of a particular method for computing stormwater runoff that is not particularly appropriate. Reduce the size of a drainage area considered small from 200 to 50 acres, and disallowed the use of the rational method for peak flow calculation if the time of concentration is greater than 20 minutes. We removed a reference to city-maintained hydrologic and hydraulic models because we do not maintain them. We specified minimum total time of concentration as 5 minutes, and we reduced the maximum distance allowable for the time of sheet flow and time of concentration calculations from 300 to 100 feet. And this is essentially the same presentation that we did a workshop with council, but we also did a couple sessions where we reached out to the development community and their engineers and went through it with them. So some of these numbers may not really mean a whole lot to you, but it means something to the engineer who's designing the facilities. And these make it a little bit harder for them. It makes their designs more conservative. Okay, it does matter to me.
Public hearing. And
Okay.
there's
Understood. All right, so a big one, and I put it in the bold because it will cost more. It's a higher standard, but it's absolutely necessary. We adopted the NOAA Atlas 14 precipitation frequency data for stormwater runoff calculations, and that's moving us a little bit closer to dealing with the storm events that we're starting to see, more intense rain, more water in a shorter period of time. So that's a really important one. We increased design loading of crossings, culverts, and bridges to HS25. It's a little bit stronger than the old standard. We increased freeboard depths required for channels between 5 and 10 feet. Used to be, I think, 10% of the design flow of the water, and we increased it to a foot. We decreased allowable earthen channel side slopes from 3 to 1 to 4 to 1. And that is really a maintenance and safety issue. 3 to 1 is incredibly difficult to maintain, particularly for mowing. Larry Bush is in the back. His guys have turned over many tractors. So that's one that he's really excited to see change. We decreased channel side slope allowance for railing to be required from 2 to 1 to 3 to 1 for channel depths greater than 2 feet. That's just another enhanced safety issue. We decreased minimum bottom widths of earthen channel, requiring a concrete trickle channel from 12 to 8 feet. And those are all in blue because those are things that will cost the developer a little bit more money, take up a little bit more space, but they are necessary for enhanced safety in most cases in this section. We added a requirement of access manholes at all storm sewer junctions. We added control of the 2-year frequency event to detention facility design. I'm kind of excited about this one, and I always say if I could require the 6 months frequency event, that's what I would require. What happens is a detention pond is designed to control certain frequencies of storms. And a 100-year frequency storm, of course, is the massive storm that has a 1% chance in any given year of occurring. But the detention pond doesn't do anything to control that runoff from a 2-year storm, which has a 5% chance. I really need to get my math right before I come in here. I do this every time. In any case, every 2 years, essentially. It's a big storm, but it happens much more frequently. And so those events, the detention pond does nothing for the water. There's more water now than there was previously during one of those storms. So we're going to control the 2-year frequency event, along with the 5 and the 10 and the 25 and the 100. We removed a reference to regional detention facilities. That is certainly a good idea, but it's just not where we are as a community. Each development generally works on its own. We added additional criteria that must be met in order for consideration of a detention facility with a permanent wet pool. And we added a requirement for the provision of adequate space for the transition of flow from a drainage outfall to pre-development conditions prior to leaving the property. So that's very similar to the one I talked about before, where we're trying to mimic existing conditions in the post-development scenario. Moving on to sanitary sewer. We added requirement of property line cleanouts on all laterals and removed reference to cleanouts otherwise used on public mains. This is actually a policy that we implemented a couple of years ago. It's working very well, but we hadn't put it into the design guide yet, so it will be in there formally. Another one that we're already requiring, and it's extremely low cost deal, is to add the requirement for a sampling port on all non-residential laterals. We updated requirement for flowable fill to encapsulate all manholes. Previously, that was required on manholes that were under pavement. Now and it's another one, we've been requiring it by policy, and we updated our standard details years ago to require it around all manholes, but now we're going to get it updated in this guide as well. We clarified a waiting period prior to testing after final backfill and or pavement construction, and that actually is in line with the technical specifications that are already in place. Section 6 of the guide relates to water requirements. We reduced the distance required between fire hydrant and structure from 500 to 400, or as required by the fire marshal. Sometimes the fire marshal has discretion in certain circumstances, so this way it's not strict. We added a section related to private fire lines, limiting the length of a single connection to a public main to 1,000 feet and citing references for design criteria and construction specifications. We added the prohibition of domestic connection to dead-end mains and clarified looping requirements. We clarified the requirement for construction of cross-connecting supply and distribution mains, including those on the water master plans and where the distance to the nearest mains exceeds the minimum. And that's in an effort to build out the grid of the water system and provide redundancy in the system community-wide. We also added a prohibition of combined domestic and fire service lines for private facilities. This is really getting to the multifamily projects where the developers seem to believe, and they could be right in some instances, that it's a more efficient design, more economical to put one line in that can serve as fire protection and domestic. Public Works regularly gets calls of water quality issues in facilities with those types of systems. What we believe is a better situation is when there's a separate fire line and then a separate domestic line that is generally a smaller diameter to feed the domestic use for those facilities. Okay, more water design criteria changes. We added a default requirement for encasement of pipe beneath commercial driveways, but we built in specifically a provision for exception based on certain considerations, such as how many other driveways does the facility have, what's the depth of the line, what type of a facility is it, those sorts of things. And the purpose for the encasement is so that the water line could be accessed without having to close down the driveway in case there's any problem with the water line. We added a requirement for encasement of mains crossing thoroughfare roadways, essentially the same sort of thing. We added the Schertz connection to fire hydrant specification. This is a connection that's needed because of the types of connections that the fire trucks have. And this is another thing that we've been requiring without a problem for several years, but we're formalizing it in this guide now. We added the requirements and standards for replacement of asbestos cement pipe when new connection is being made or where cover over the main is decreased. It's essentially impossible to tap into an asbestos cement main. They're very brittle and can crumble, cause all sorts of problems. So we were, cutting it and trying to make a new coupling to it is not a good idea. So we require the joints to be replaced from collar to collar. And so we're formalizing that. We have one section at the end of the design guide that is covering inspections and testing. It was previously inspections, testing, and charges. Don't really know how it got to be charges, so we took charges off. I didn't upgrade this slide or update the slide, but in any case, we increased testing frequency for street, subgrade, and base, and asphalt. We updated infrastructure acceptance submittal requirements to specify only digital formats and specified that asset locations must be surveyed. And in response to one of the comments that we got after our outreach meetings, we've updated the guide to specify what assets need to be surveyed, and those are things like manholes, including the tops and the inverts, valves, fire hydrants. So the sorts of things that we need to know precisely where they are, and if there's an elevation, for example, with manholes, we want to know where those elevations are. Quite frequently, it doesn't get built exactly to plan, and so we want it surveyed after it goes in so that we know exactly what was installed. And we brought the guide into alignment with the UDC by citing the 2-year warranty period for public improvements. That's been required for several years, but we hadn't updated the design guide yet. So we've done a workshop with City Council. We had stakeholder meetings, and both of those cases, we basically gave the same presentation to run through the updates. So you all are hearing it this evening. Next, we will go to City Council with public hearing and then adopt the ordinance and adopt the design guide through reference in the code. This is kind of, sort of an update to the UDC in a roundabout way. So we're suggesting that you use the same evaluation criteria that you use for UDC updates. So number 1 is the proposed amendment promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of the city and the safe, orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. And I think this design guide itself exactly does that, and the updates to it provide up-to-date infrastructure construction design standards that are essential to protect those things. Next, an amendment to the text is consistent with other policies of the UDC in the city, and that's another thing that this update does specifically. It brings it into alignment with other documents, standards, and policies. Any proposed amendment is consistent with the goals and objectives of the UDC in the city. And this design guide is specifically intended to promote high-quality, sustainable infrastructure, which are actual goals stated in the newly adopted strategic plan for the city, and other criteria, which at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council are deemed relevant and important to the consideration of the amendment. So the scheduled public hearing provides you all the opportunity to determine and consider if there's anything else that you would like to look into. That concludes my presentation of the really exciting updates.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Okay, this is a public hearing, and it is now 7:53 p.m. I'm not going to ask about the applicant because she just gave us a rundown. So anyone wishing to address the commission on this subject is welcome to step forward at this time. Nobody? Oh, no, Larry's happy back there in the corner. Nobody? All righty. It is 7:54 and public comment period is closed. Yeah, kind of a roundabout way for the P and Z. It's, yeah, because it's referenced in the UDC, that's, yeah, okay. I have one question, so let me get that out of the way real quick. Kathy, 6.2B5, the combined line thing. You're not talking about 1 and 2 family dwellings with the residential sprinkler systems where
No.
they take it off the domestic supply.
Not at all. It's
Okay.
combined fire, domestic.
Not that we have any, well, we may have 1 or 2. I wish we had more. Commissioners, anybody else? Oh, come on, you gotta have. Oh. See, they don't use it, and then they start using it, and, yeah, okay, Richard, go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a good summary of all this stuff. I'm happy to see the requirements for the street inspections. I think we've needed more and more inspections and more stringent inspections for a long time. There's a lot of new subdivisions that have been built in the past where the streets fell apart before the last house was built. So however you guys strengthen this and make it more stringent, I'm all for it. It's great. 45B1A, you talk about the sheet flow.
Yes.
Can an engineer be really concise and kind of explain a little bit more? What is that going to make conditions on along 1518 better than they have been? And how's that going to work? Is it controlling sheet flow or defining sheet flow or
So no, all this is doing is it's really making a more conservative calculation in the bottom line, but it's so when the time of concentration is calculated, and let's see, let me back up, try and do this, explain it in order. So the time of concentration is the time it takes a raindrop that hits the ground here to get to the study point. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that happens, the rain comes down and it is sheet flow until it combines with a lot of other sheet flow into starts to get a little channelized, and then it's called shallow concentrated flow, and then it gets to channelized flow. And for each one of those, there's a different calculation of how long it takes to get from point 1 to point 2. And sheet flow, it's based on the type of surface, whether it's a forest or a lawn or asphalt. When it's sheet flow at a certain slope and a certain surface, this is how you calculate the time it takes. Once it gets to shallow concentrated flow, it's a different calculation to calculate the time, and it generally is going faster. And then, of course, once it gets to channelized flow, it's going even faster. So we don't believe that sheet flow in general is actually, that it's lasting as sheet flow for 300 feet. We think by the time it's got 300 feet, it has channelized in some way. It has become concentrated. So this will have your calculation speed up the time of concentration to a certain extent. And the final number of the time of concentration is what gets put into a formula, and the shorter the time of concentration, the higher the precipitation amount.
Right.
And your pre-development time of concentration is almost always longer than your post-development. Because if you think about it, pre-development almost always is going across just a vegetated area. Post-development, it's got a short vegetated area, and then it's going on pavement.
So this will all basically change the design of the water control structures?
It will likely change the calculation for the flow coming into, say, a detention facility. So it will,
I guess what I'm getting at is with development south of 78, we get a lot of complaints from people that have lived here for ages that sheet flow is a major problem. And it's not really taken into account like they think it should be. And I'm hoping that something like this will make it better. Or am I off somewhere?
I don't know that this will address what that complaint is about. I think a lot of what that is just about is that everything is so flat. And
Well, their complaints begin with development. And so if this helps control the runoff from a development,
it will help the control to be slightly more conservative,
okay,
more,
okay, I understand that.
okay.
I think it's a good thing. All right. You talked a little bit in the beginning about, this is going to add cost or add expenses, to some of the development. I don't think we need to be overly concerned about that. Those of us who've been here when the flood of 98 happened, I don't really care how much it costs. I want to be protected from a major flood event like that as best we can. And if it costs a little more for that, that's great. And it's because we live in that environment and we live close to Cibolo Creek and we've had these major floods in the past. I think we need whatever standards to be increased that we need to make it safer here and to reduce the amount of damage that can happen from an event like that. So I'm concerned about overly expensive things, but if it's going to cost a developer a little bit more, I'm not concerned about that at all. I want to be protected here. And there's some good things in here with water and sanitary sewer improvements. And I think they are improvements. And I think by doing these things, you guys can work smarter and not harder. And I think that's what we need. And manholes and casements and all kinds of other things are going to make things a lot better for the workers and make our infrastructure a lot more sustainable. So good job on all that. Appreciate that.
And I do think we can do more, but we'll get there.
We'll take steps.
Yeah.
Step improvement is good. Wake up, Larry.
Anybody else? All right, again, this is a recommendation to City Council. We have an option to not take any action this evening, the way it's written. But basically, again, we can recommend approval, denial. We can recommend approval with some changes, or we can send her back to the drawing board. So, which preference?
I'll make a motion for approval of PLUDC 202-40243.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of PLUDC 2024-0243. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Please record your vote. We have 7 votes. You publish that for us, please. Big surprise, 7 ayes, none opposed. Thank you, Kathy. All right, item number 6, items for individual consideration. 6A, PLPP 2024-0175. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat for the Monroe subdivision, lots 1 and 2, Block 1, approximately 22 acres of land generally located 400 feet east from the intersection of Ware Seguin Road and Banig Drive, also known as Bear Property Identification Number 619166, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas.
Good evening once again. PLPP 2024-0175, a proposed preliminary plat for the Monroe subdivision, Daisy Marquez, planner. Here's the subject property outlined in green. This is Ware Seguin Road. Here's the subject property once again, but outlined in yellow. It is approximately 22 acres. They're proposing the Monroe subdivision to establish 2 lots. It is located in the APZ1 and the APZ2. Lot 1, Block 1 is this northern portion. It is approximately 9.31 acres. It is currently zoned General Business District and has direct access onto Ware Seguin Road. Lot 2, Block 1 is approximately 12.39 acres. It is currently zoned Single Family Residential Agricultural District RA and has access to Ware Seguin via a 30-foot ingress and egress easement. So why are we here? UDC Section 1293J requires that each lot be provided with adequate access to a public street, either by direct frontage or by public access easement approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Lot 2, Block 1 of the Monroe subdivision has access to Ware Seguin Road through a non-exclusive 30-foot ingress and egress easement, as you can see here by this very small text, which makes the preliminary plat subject to discretionary approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And here is that plat exhibit. That's page 1 of the plat. And this is page 2 that shows an offsite easement. So the preliminary plat is generally consistent with the applicable requirements, ordinances, and regulations for this property, and it has been reviewed with no objections by engineering, fire, and planning departments. So staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat as presented. Any comments or questions?
Commissioners? Turn your mic on, Clay, please.
It's basically just showing the off-site sewer connection because this is the existing closest wastewater connection.
Cool. That's it.
Is this subject to any review by Randolph, since given its location?
So we send the plat application to JBSA Randolph like we do all other planning applications as well, but since it's not a zoning, we do not have to have an affirmative response.
Okay. Site plan, would they get a chance to look at any site plan that results, or?
So again, right, we send every planning application that we receive to JBSA for the review, but in terms of when we are required per the UDC to get a response back, it's only for zoning applications, so zoning and SUPs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is a non-exclusive easement? What does that mean? Did I get that right? It's non-exclusive or inclusive? I'm not sure. What is it?
So ultimately, the easement right from Ware Seguin Road through Lot 1 to Lot 2 is there to provide access for both the property owner, but could also be utilized by emergency services as well to access Lot 2.
Okay, I guess I'm asking, what other types of, this one is clearly labeled non-exclusive. So what does that mean? Anybody can use it? Or?
That's my understanding, but I'm going to look at the really smart engineering folks back there, Kathy.
I mean, I don't think anybody would ever have an issue with emergency services, but again, it's ensuring that Lot 2 has that access.
So typically what we see in an easement document that's a separate instrument it'll say this easement is non-exclusive, meaning that another easement can be overlaid and the space could be shared for that.
Oh, okay. It's not.
On this document here, I
yeah.
wish we had legal to give us a solid answer to your question.
I'm going to exercise some privilege here. Is this something that you folks know? Is this your thing going on? Can you help us out?
Hello, I'm Darren Huckert with Garza EMC, a civil engineer, and non-exclusive just typically means in the actual easement language, if you do a separate instrument document, not a plat. So if there's a plat note or something that defines what that non-exclusiveness is, that might be the thing that you require or recommend to this plat perhaps. But exclusive is usually access easement, only access, no utilities, no cable, no power, no water, no wastewater. Because most of your utility easements are exclusive to that utility, whether it's a wastewater line, a water line, overhead electric, underground electric, that type of stuff. Communications. So it's almost like it's a public utility or a public easement being non-exclusive. That would be my take.
Okay.
Non-exclusive pretty much just says they're given this part of land for anyone's use back.
So it can be
Unless it's further
accessed.
defined somewhere,
Okay.
or if there's a city definition within the city of Schertz that has a provision that says non-exclusive means this, that's the only way I would answer that.
All right. So in general, what I'm hearing is a non-exclusive. It could be access. It can also be utilities and. Okay.
That's what I would
All right.
say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay. We're good with that? All right. Anybody else? We're just having way too much fun tonight. Nobody. All right. This is our action tonight. The buck stops here. We can approve, deny, or approve with conditions. If someone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PLPP 202401775.
Second.
My second came from down here. All right. One of these days I'll go get my ears checked. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve, not recommend, but to approve PLPP 2024-0175, correct? Any further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, please record your vote. Okay, I have 7 votes. You publish that, please. 7 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Okay, item 6B, PLPP 2024-0215 is a waiver. Consider and act upon a request for a waiver in relation to on-site sewer facilities for the preliminary plat of the Schertz Logistics Subdivision, approximately 43 acres of land located approximately 400 feet north of the intersection of FM 2252 and FM 482, also known as Comal County Property Identification Numbers 378449 and 379114, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. So they're just letting you do all the work tonight, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
PLPP 2024-0215, waiver for the proposed Schertz Logistics Subdivision Preliminary Plat. Here's the subject property outlined in green. It is located along FM 2252, and this is I-35. So here's the subject property again outlined in yellow. Is it approximately 43 acres? It is currently undeveloped. It is zoned Manufacturing Light District M1. It is being proposed for industrial use. It is currently undeveloped. It is located approximately 400 feet north of the intersection of FM 2252 and FM 482. Here is the first page of that plat page and the second page. So the applicant is seeking approval of the waiver to install a privately owned on-site sewer facility on the subject property proposed with the preliminary plat, and per UDC Article 15, Section 2115.3A, wastewater systems, wastewater connection required, and Section 2115.3D, utilities. All lots within a subdivision are required to connect to public sanitary sewer systems and extend wastewater lines unless otherwise approved by the city. So that's why we're here today. And based on the requirements of the UDC and proposed installation of an OSSF, a waiver is required to be requested from the Planning and Zoning Commission as detailed in UDC Section 2112.15 waivers. So the closest sanitary sewer connection is approximately 9,600 feet away from the subject property at the intersection of Abbey Road and the railroad tracks, as you can see from this graphic. And the subject property is actually part of a larger partnership with the City of Schertz Economic Development Corporation and the STX Frio subdivision immediately to the north of the subject property to construct a sanitary sewer main from Abbey Road to the southern boundary property line of the proposed subdivision. And the engineering department has reviewed this waiver request and has determined that they will support conditional approval of this waiver request. So the sewer line will be constructed soon due to this partnership, and once the line is constructed, the Schertz Logistics subdivision will then be required to connect and extend the sanitary sewer in accordance with Section 9078 of the Code of Ordinances. And the preliminary plat submitted demonstrates a 20-foot sanitary sewer easement to meet future tie-in requirements. But until the sanitary sewer line is built and reaches the subject property, per approval of this waiver request, the property will have an on-site sewer facility before this property is public. And if approved, the OSSF proposed for the site will be reviewed and permitted through Comal County, meet Comal County requirements, and a building permit will not be issued without either a Comal County OSSF approved permit or extension of and connection to the public system. So recommendation, approval with conditions. So staff recommends approval of the waiver based on the following conditions. The developer executes an escrow agreement with the City of Schertz to provide funding for the connection to and extension of the sanitary sewer main across the subdivision as generally depicted in the preliminary plat. And once the sanitary sewer main is constructed to the northern boundary of the Schertz Logistics subdivision, the developer will cease OSSF operation, connection to the sanitary sewer, and extend the sanitary sewer main across the subdivision to the southwest corner of the subdivision. Oh, went backwards. Comments and questions?
Commissioners? No? Yeah, this is a little bit different than what we normally see. One of the conditions is once sewer is there, they will connect. Okay.
Question real quick.
Sure.
Is there a time frame in regard to how long they have to connect, or is it just, I don't want to say open-ended, but there's no.
So I know they've been working on this for a very long time. This
Yeah.
is a very large deal that EDC has been working with them.
Yeah.
And this is something that it's coming very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
They want to develop as soon as they can. I know the northern portion got theirs approved earlier this year or at the end of last year.
Okay.
Oh, Kathy can speak on.
I can give a little bit of an update on this one. So my understanding is that they are not at all planning to install a septic system. They only need this procedurally to be able to record the plat so that they can start construction on their facility. And we actually are this close to having the last easement necessary for the sewer trunk main that will come up and serve and go through this property. So
That will be a big deal.
if
up
you
there,
are
right?
supposed to disregard that or not disregard that, but
Okay.
but that's a
Understand.
current status.
No, but I think that's what Mr. Wallace was asking, so.
I'm good. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, this, again, this is our action, and,
Yeah, the,
Adam, I would just say if you can get it there tomorrow, we would take it.
okay. Once again, this is our action, and we can approve, we can deny, we can approve. Now, my suggestion would be to approve it with the conditions specified by staff, but you're free to make your own motion if you'd like to. Patrick, you going, I see two mics on there.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve with the staff conditions PLPP 20240215 waiver.
second.
Was that Clay? Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve PLPP 2024-0215 with the conditions specified by staff. Any further comments or questions, discussion? Please record your vote. I have 7 votes. Please publish that. 7 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. And thank you again for your help with the other one. Appreciate that. All right, item 6C, PLPP 2024-0215. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the, oh, okay, yeah. The first one's the waiver. Now we're doing the, yeah. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the Schertz Logistics subdivision, an approximately 43-acre tract of land located approximately 400 feet north of the intersection of FM 2252 and FM 482, also known as Comal County Property Identification Numbers 378449 and 379114, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Again, Daisy.
PLPP 2024-0215. This is the subject property outlined in green. It is the same property that you just approved the waiver for. Here's the plat exhibit. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat as presented. Comments and questions?
That was quick. I read through my, so why is this plat for us? Why are we seeing this instead of just staff approving it?
Because of the waiver.
Oh, okay.
So the plat doesn't show the connections to sanitary sewer because they were requesting the waiver. If the waiver, technically if the waiver wasn't approved, then the plat wouldn't meet all of the requirements and we'd be looking at a different, outcome. So
Well-
the preliminary plat is here because of the waiver request
Okay.
to not connect.
So did I blink and miss, are you going to show us the plat or? I missed it. I blinked. Okay. Oh, yeah. You know what I said about getting old? You remember that, Will? What I said earlier? Thank you, Daisy. That's. All right. Comments and questions? Anybody? Again, this is our action. We can approve, we can deny, we can approve with conditions. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PLPP 20240215 preliminary plot.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second to approve PLPP 2024-0215. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Somebody's already voted. Okay. No, that's fine. Please record your votes. All right, there's 7 votes. You want to publish that, please? We have 7 ayes and none opposed. Motion passes. Sorry it took us so long to get there. Okay, item number 7, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda.
I'd like to request that we put on the future agenda a recommendation to City Council that manufactured houses be considered the same as regular houses.
Could we, let's see. Could we frame that to ask staff to review, or let's have a workshop on possibly amending the UDC to allow manufactured homes on what is it? Agriculture is AD and RA?
Yeah.
And then that kind of keeps them out of, then we're not talking in R1s and R2s. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that would be
That
fine.
satisfy you? Okay, all right. Anybody else? I had one, but Kathy talked me out of it, so.
I have an announcement if we're,
Well, we'll get there. Let me make sure. We don't, no more future agenda things. Okay, let's see. I just got to make a quick note here. All right, item B, announcements by commissioners. Anybody? Clay, go ahead.
just a reminder, October 7th is the last day to register to vote, if you have not done so. It also doesn't help to check that you are still enrolled or still registered, because they clear the list every couple of years or something like that, so. It's not hard to check, it's just on the website, but yeah.
All right.
October 7th.
Actually, well, I don't want to say it's that because you kind of have to dig for it, but it's there, yes. Anybody else? City staff, you guys have any announcements? Oh, you don't want Daisy to get up here one more time? No? All right, and then, of course, item 8, information available on current projects and their city council status is available in your packets. It is now 8:26, and this meeting's adjourned.